program, a 10-week coaching program, a Leadership for Women coaching program with 10 master series. And this is happening. We've got a cohort that is starting on the 6th of August. But what we share on every webinar on monthly is a concept, as I mentioned, that we then take a deep dive in the master series or in the leadership coaching program. But here we are just really taking some of the snippets of the content that we share in the master series or in the Leadership for Women coaching program that is 10 weeks. So when we are talking about the Leadership for Women, one of the things that we believe in, or one of the concepts that we share there, is the total person model. So we don't believe that when we're developing leaders, we only talk about one aspect of their lives. And I think one of the things that we find interesting when we are developing women leaders is they often struggle with what we call life balance, right? Life balance. But you often then find out that they have clear goals, clear KPIs for their career, but other key areas of their lives are not really structured. There's no goals, there's no KPIs. So when we're talking about the total person, when we do the leadership development journey or the Leadership for Women coaching program, we're really looking at the total person and looking at the key areas of our life. And as you can see on the screen, we've got the financial and career, you've got the mental and education, physical and health, social and cultural, spiritual and ethical, and the family and home. So total person, we develop a person as a total person. And just by way of reflecting, you could just simply start by asking yourself, do you have written down goals in each of the key areas of your life for 2025, for 5 years, for 10 years? And do you have a dream list for each of the key areas of your life? But we also develop leaders as total leaders. So when we develop you as a total person, then we develop you as a total leader. And when we are talking about a total leader, we're really looking at the 5 levels of leadership. So when we're going through the process of the leadership development journey, we then look at the 4 levels of leadership, which is the personal productivity, the personal leadership. And personal productivity, we are really looking at your ability to self-manage, to manage your time and your energy, and to be able to focus on your priorities. Then we look at the personal leadership, which is really focusing on living a balanced life, living a balanced life. And we can see that when you're living a balanced life, you increase your leadership effectiveness by 52%. And then we look at the next level, which is the motivational leadership, the ability to lead and motivate others. And as you can see, it's a pyramid. So the way you manage yourself at the bottom, the way you are able to lead at the bottom determines the next level of leadership, or has an impact on the next level of leadership. And then we also look at the strategic leadership, the ability to lead the organization, the ability to be able to make sure that your team remains focused on the vision, the values, and the mission of the business. And when you are able to lead strategically, you increase your leadership effectiveness by about 88%. So this is critical for us when we're developing leaders, that we develop them as total persons, but we also develop them as total leaders. And as mentioned, we take a deep dive in our 10-week coaching program. We have a cohort that is starting on the 6th of August, and we will send you information if you're interested. But for today, we're really focusing on the financial aspect. It is July, the National Savings Month in South Africa. It is July, the National Savings Month in South Africa, and we thought the topic that is befitting, although we talk about financial and career, we often then focus mostly on the career. And I read something recently that was interesting that said, take your money further, right? Take your money as further as your career, right? Is your money reflecting where you are in your career journey, right? So that's why today we really have we've got a panel discussion, and we are spoiled to have 2 women that really work with finances. And I'm going to start by introducing Gugu. Gugu, if you can come online for our participants. So Gugu has 17 years experience in the industry. Her career has predominantly been in financial services. She has worked as a stockbroker within the boutique stockbroking business and in Johannesburg, and later joined the business wealth management team where she has served high net worthy individuals. In 2018, she co-founded WealthCreate, a financial planning and wealth management practice that services professionals, entrepreneurs, and retirees with a particular focus on women. In 2019, she founded My Three Piggies, a financial literacy hub for children, and has authored 5 children financial literacy books. Oh, wow. You know, our kids need to know better. They need to do better than we have done financially. And I like the fact that we can start them, you know, young. Thank you for that work, Gugu. We appreciate you. Okay, and she is passionate about this industry and seeing ordinary South Africans achieve their financial success. Welcome, Gugu.
Thank you so much, Mavis, and good morning to everybody online.
Okay, and then we also have another panelist, an incredible lady, Candice Preston. Okay, and I'm just going to read her brief profile. Candice is a certified financial literacy educator and accountability coach with money-savvy humans, passionate about helping women become confident and empowered with their money. She started investing at just 15 years old, sparking a lifelong commitment to financial independence and education. With a master's degree in education, over a decade of experience, Candice now teaches the power of small financial decisions and helps individuals feel confident, capable, and in control of their finances. And through her Money Savvy roadmap and coaching programs, she equips teens, adults with the tools to budget, save, invest, and build a future they are proud of. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, Candice.
Thanks so much, Mavis. Good morning, everyone.
Okay. I think this is an interesting conversation. Women talking about money to women, right? And I think one of the things that is kind of challenging is we know that there's also something that I read that was interesting to say women usually try and change their behavior without changing the beliefs that is driving those behaviors, right? So to get us started, right, Gugu, you have worked with a lot of women when they're talking about their money. What are some of the beliefs that hold women back when it comes to, you know, progression in their financial lives?
That is such an interesting question, and it is true. So, and a lot of the research that's out there, and it's actually international research, actually backs that up. Women tend to feel quite embarrassed and ill-equipped when it comes to matters of personal finance. And it's so interesting. A lot of them actually are okay with how they're managing their money, but there's less confidence in themselves in managing their personal finances. And interestingly, not to bash any men, men tend to present the opposite. They tend to present an overconfidence in their ability to manage personal finances, even if they don't have the necessary skills to do so.
Wow. Thanks for that. And Candice, I don't know what your experience is. I know that we've been socialized and trained as women to really prioritize other people's needs. You started investing at 15. Does that mean that you didn't have any responsibilities? No other people needs to take care of?
Well, definitely not at 15, but as I got older, there were still other people to consider. But it was amazing. I think having had that opportunity, and I mean, I learned from my mom, and my mom was someone who hadn't done well with her money. My dad did, as Gugu said, the men are always confident, they deal with it. But my mom made so many mistakes, and she used to share those with me. And from having those conversations all the time, I kind of had a different approach to finances. From young, I was part of the conversation. I had more confidence. And I learned about putting myself first financially in order to help others through that. But I was really fortunate because I did have that position starting out where it was just me in the beginning, so that as those responsibilities came in, I already had the mindset and the behaviors set up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And then when you look at the money cycle, right? So people talk about the money cycles and different people have different sort of different versions of the money cycle. So the one that I have seen is the debt repair, is the earning, is the managing, is the investing, and the protecting. So we're going to have questions, at least a question on each of these sort of areas that we are dealing with around our finances and see if there are differences for us as women. We've just really already dived into the questions because we've got 45 minutes. It's just a short webinar. So we're really going to get into it and get running with it. And if you've got any questions as we're going along, please put questions in the chat box. We would probably spend like maybe 5 minutes before we finish off just to look at some of the questions you may have for us or for the panel. Okay. All right, Gugu. What are some of the strategies? Cool. Yes, I think we will see that we tried to send a survey, which a few people have completed. And you can see that people have debt, and some of the people are not confident whether they'll actually become debt-free. And some people don't even have a plan to pay off their debt, right? They are just paying maybe the minimum repayment that, you know, your home loan says pay the minimum repayment, or your car repayment. So people are doing the bare minimum, not really kind of becoming self-determining to say, I want to be debt-free in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years. So the majority are following the script that has been handed to them. What are some of the strategies that you recommend to women leaders who want to accelerate paying off their high interest debt?
You know, an interesting thing that I've observed in practice is that a lot of people don't understand their debt at all, right? For the most part, people are grateful that the banks or the financial institutions have extended credit to them, and that's where it stops. And so when we start the work to interrogate the makeup of the debt, the eyes are always, you know, wide open, with shock. I did an exercise recently, just literally a couple of days ago, with an individual who acquired a personal loan to for home renovations for an extended family member. When she didn't know, firstly, when I asked the question, she didn't know what the interest rate level was. So when I asked her for the statement, this was the first time that she'd actually drawn a statement. So she had actually stopped at acquiring the debt, and that was the end of it. So I asked, what is the term of the debt? She didn't know. What is the interest rate level? She didn't know. And so when we interrogated it, I mean, just to let you know, it was a 64 months. I don't know how many years that is, but a 64-month personal unsecured loan, right? At almost 30%. So when we did the numbers, she's going to pay back almost double what she took out. In fact, it's almost 3 times. It's a lot of money. She had no idea that she's going to end up paying almost R1 million on something that's so small in current terms. And so I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, is that you feel so grateful that the banks have extended credit to you, but you actually don't realize the makeup or the extent to which you're indebted. So that's step one. Understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. And number two, she wasn't aware that she could pay this thing off a lot sooner than she could. And I said to her, it is in your best interest to pay this thing off as quickly as possible, because it makes no sense to pay off double what you've taken out. That's the second thing. The third thing is there's a difference between the minimum monthly repayment amount and the interest charged. And for certain loans, those two don't match. What that means is the minimum monthly repayment amount is what you need to, the amounts of money that you need to pay in to keep up or to just keep servicing the loan, right? You don't know what's happening to the debt. You just need to keep up with that so that they don't blacklist you, so that you don't get into trouble with the financial institution. With her, she wasn't aware that the two don't match. The minimum monthly repayment amount did not match the interest rate that she's charged on a monthly basis. What that means is you're paying less than what you're charged in interest. The difference is then capitalized. So it increases your loan at the end of the day. And that's why you end up paying 3-4 times more than what you're actually supposed to be paying off. Firstly, it's the high interest rates. And then secondly, the two amounts don't match. So you absolutely, I think as a bare minimum, you have to interrogate the structure of that loan and understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. And only then will you be able to put together a plan to pay that off in a way that makes sense to you for your budget.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So that is very powerful, that, you know, the financial literacy. So we get the loan, but we don't have financial literacy around it, right? So it's very interesting. The other day, I was also having a conversation with a cousin of mine, and we were looking at our bond interest, and she has an interest of about 12.8, and mine is like 9 point something. I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Right? And so almost for a similar amount, yet she's paying more than I'm paying for the same amount, because obviously, and of the lack of literacy, but also a key concept, negotiation, right? So as women, we struggle to talk about money, to negotiate, you know, those interest rates, or to compare the interest rates. Candice, what is your thought? It's debt repayment. How do we use our negotiation skills in order to accelerate our debt repayment? What are some of your experiences?
I think the biggest thing is to understand that everything is negotiable. I think so often as women, we've been nurtured to be people pleasers. So we kind of accept it. We're like, oh no, that's, you know, they're giving us a good deal. That's lovely. And I don't want to appear difficult to now go, you know, I actually don't accept this rate. And that's quite important to start to understand that, because men will often do that. They will negotiate straight away because they don't see that as part of who they are. Whereas women, we want to be liked. So it's really important to become aware of it. I think that's the first thing, because it's not a bad thing. It's understanding what we believe and how we've been brought up, but then understanding that negotiating is a good business skill. And everything is negotiable. And it's actually learning and practicing it. So in the beginning, I was also very nervous. I also accepted things. I was like, yeah, okay, this is great. They're giving me the best deal. I don't want to be difficult. And I started learning that, no, you need to negotiate. And it started with small things. I just started slowly building up my skills and my abilities. And I mean, it's still something I'm continually practicing. But it's start small and train yourself and learn from people who are good negotiators. Go speak to those men who are phenomenal negotiators and find out what they do, so that you can also learn how to negotiate. However, as women, we do have to play by slightly different rules. So there are slight nuances that we have to be aware of. I remember reading a study once that during a negotiation, a woman should smile more compared to a man. And it seems like a weird thing, but that actually lands up getting you further along. But it's the practice, I think, that builds up that confidence, and it becomes familiar, and then you just keep doing it.
Thanks for sharing that. And it's amazing how for us, money is not just a tool, it becomes an identity, right? It kind of is a way of interfering with who we are as women, and that then, you know, even affect our earning ability, right? So our earning ability, most women don't negotiate even when they get the offer. They also then don't increase their earning ability intentionally. We wait for someone to notice, oh, you're working very hard, let's reward you for it. But sometimes people are not looking. So what are some of the things that women can do to increase their earning ability? Because it's one thing to talk about saving, but if there's not enough to save, you then need to increase your earning ability in order to have the, you know, the money that you can invest or you can save. What are some of the things that women are doing or women can do to increase their interest, their earning?
I think we need to take a few steps back. You actually shared that well-being sort of circle in the beginning, and our business actually leans quite heavily on similar research from the Gallup Institute, in that we cannot look at your money in isolation. So when I'm helping clients manage their personal finances, I have to look at all aspects of them, right? The entire well-being wheel. And that includes your social well-being, which is the relationships in your life. You included it in there. It includes your physical well-being, so your physical, emotional, and mental health, community well-being, and career well-being. And part of career well-being, when managing personal finances for clients, we first try to get them to envision or paint a picture of the perfect life that they want to live in the future, right? And typically for a lot of people, that's retirement. So beyond the age of 55, we try to get them to be as crystal clear as possible in terms of that kind of life, how they want to live, how they want to feel, where they want to be, all of that, right? And then we work it backwards to say, well, we start there to say that kind of a life is going to cost you a specific amount of money, right? And then we work it backwards to say, how do you then fund that kind of a life, right? And then we compare that to the money that they're earning and how they're currently saving and investing. And oftentimes there's a mismatch between the two. How you're currently saving and investing is not going to get you to the kind of life that you're wanting in the future. And the thing about personal finance is that you can only budget so far. You can invest so much, you know, with the amount of money that you've got. For some people, it then necessitates a career shift or a change in income, right? For them to actually get to that point in their lives that they've envisioned for themselves. And that's where the career and the earning then comes into play, right? Because you can only invest so much, you can only budget so much. And then we say, okay, so now the amount of money that you're earning, saving and investing is not going to build the kind of life that you're wanting to live. So now what? Then you have to then consider, compare where they're trying to get to, the current money that they're earning. And then that's where the negotiation starts to say, I actually need to be earning this amount of money in order for me to be able to grow it to the point that I want to live a certain life. And I think for me, that's the starting point. So I can never really influence how somebody should go around negotiating for the money that they want, but I first empower them with the vision that they want to live with their lives, and then work it backwards from there to say, now you actually need to go ask for 30%. How you're going to do that, where you're going to do that is entirely up to you. You're the expert in your life. Maybe it's a point of personal development. Maybe you need to upskill yourself. Maybe you need to get a different degree. Maybe you need to pivot. Maybe you need to change careers. Maybe you need to change jobs altogether. Whatever that looks like for you, all I can tell you is that you need an additional 30% in order to fund the lifestyle that you're trying to live. I don't know if that answers your question.
I love just what you're saying. Start with a vision, because otherwise getting an increase without a vision, you will lose the money. So most people have gotten the increases, but they still have nothing to show in terms of, where the money went. Okay, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And with that, I've heard about the financial freedom number. I know, Candace, you might have spoken about it at another seminar, or we might have had a conversation about the financial freedom number. Do you want to shed light on that? What is a financial freedom number? How do people get there? Which probably still highlights the vision, but in more numerical terms.
Yeah, so as Gugu said, it's understanding yourself and your vision, which is really important. So I think financial freedom is quite personal to each of us. For me, it was about I wanted to get to a number that my investments would generate me enough money each month to cover my base expenses. And that would be financial freedom to me, which means that I don't have to work, I can choose to work. And I'd set myself that goal that by 40, I wanted to be financially free. And what I did was I took my annual expenses and I multiplied it by 25. When I did the annual expenses, though, I sort of increased it a little bit more, and I included tax, because obviously if I had this financial freedom number, if I'm drawing it at 4% every year, I still have to pay tax. So it's important to include those things into that number, because sometimes people underestimate it. But for me, that's what financial freedom was. And I set this audacious goal. So I knew this is what I'm working towards. And knowing that once I reach that, that would be my financial freedom. It doesn't mean I was going to stop there, but it just would give me that breathing room. I was actually watching a video yesterday, and Ali Abdul actually said his financial freedom number was, I think, $3,000 a month. So he had calculated that if he could generate $3,000 extra per month from his investments, that would give him breathing room to, again, focus on other things. So it is quite a personal number, but how I started with it was just going annual expenses, including taxes, times by 25. And then you get this number that you can start working towards and start being inspired by.
Thank you for sharing that. So there are different, almost like approaches to that. I think the one that I've heard is you take your monthly expenses, multiply that by 12 and divide that by 0.08. So that gives you almost like your financial freedom number, or something to work towards, to create an asset base that can generate income that can sustain your current lifestyle should things change, whether you decide to work, or maybe there's a Section 189. We've seen a lot of Section 189s going on right now. So are you prepared when that occurs to you? So you've got an investment that can sustain your own lifestyle. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, different approaches to think about financial freedom number, or the financial vision that you want to create in order to have a sustainable lifestyle. And one of the things that we notice is women are not as great in setting long-term goals, right? We're mostly operational, immediate needs. Let's focus on what needs to get done now. I even had an interesting conversation with one lady that says, you know what, because of, she called it, I don't call it that, but she called it black tax. She says, each time I try to save, the people at home call me, and I end up sending my savings. So now I've just decided to enjoy myself. I am not going to save, so that when they call, I don't have money and there's nothing, but at least I've enjoyed myself. And I'm like, wow, all right, what happens if you have an emergency? And I think this is getting us to our next sort of, concept, to say, how do you allocate your, we talk about budgeting, but how do you make sure that when you're budgeting, you allocate for savings and you also build an emergency fund? A recent study by Standard Bank, I think, showed that people that are earning monthly, an annual income of 700,000 to R1,000,000, do not have emergency fund. Right. So it's not a matter of how much you're earning, but it's a matter of it's not happening. What are some of the reasons, Google? What do you find? Why are we not allocating for, maybe savings, investments, or, emergency fund?
Yeah. So it's beyond emergency funds. If you look, I mean, I think you quoted that statistic. Very few people in this country are able to retire. Let's just start there. And this has been happening over the years. The number is very small. Only about 6% of the population in retirement today can afford to be in retirement. The rest are dependent on the state. They're dependent on family and friends for their sustenance, or they have to continue working. And an add-on to that statistic that you've just read now, I think the number is 76% of high income earners run out of money before month end, right?
Sure.
So it's got nothing to do with your level of education or your income. All of those things are a financial education issue. People simply don't have the tools to manage their finances effectively. And if you don't have the tools, you don't know what you're doing. So you don't know what's right or wrong, and you're just living from day to day. The financial literacy rate globally, it was a study that was done a few years ago. I think it was an S&P study. Only a third of the population globally is financially literate. So it means that only 33% of the global population knows exactly what they're doing when it comes to things like debt, when to acquire debt, how to pay it off. We spoke about that earlier. Things like interest rates. How do interest rates affect you? How do interest rates affect your savings and your debt? What is risk diversification? What are investments? When to budget, how to budget? People simply don't know how that works. And in the country, I think the number is slightly higher, but still it speaks to the issues that we're experiencing today. So it's actually a financial education issue. That's why people are not doing the things that they're supposed to do, even with the money that they've got. So it starts there. I mean, the tools are available online. And I think we are so blessed to be living in a tech environment today where everything is at your fingertips. I mean, you can go into ChatGPT, for example. I mean, I'm not advocating for that 100%, but you can go into there, give it your income, and ask it to create a budget that makes sense for you, including, any savings that you need to make, right? The tools are there. There are a lot of free platforms, like, for example, I don't know what you charge here, but there are a lot of free templates, there are a lot of institutions that offer free information for people to get to understand the tools and the resources that are available to them regarding matters of personal finances. So there really is no reason for us not to have the tools, okay, and the information. And then you need to apply those tools and that information for your own personal set of circumstances. And I think this is where the value of advice comes in. And I'm not just saying this because I work in the industry, but it's like I liken what we do to the medical field, right? You can self-diagnose for so long, right? For the most part, most of us, if you've got a headache, if you've got an ache or a pain anywhere, you go to Dr. Google, and most of the time Dr. Google is correct, right? It'll say, get a paracetamol, take one a day, and you should be okay. And for the most part, you're fine. But over the long term, it does make sense for you to every now and again go see a professional, get a full body checkup, get a proper scan for the doctor to tell you that, you know what, you're actually still okay, so carry on doing what you're doing. And in certain unfortunate instances, things are diagnosed that you did not expect or anticipate. And you don't want to get to a point where it's so far down the line that it's actually terminal and there's nothing that can be done about it. And the same happens with your personal finances. So often we meet people at the end of their financial careers when they get to their early 50s and they're now considering retirement, and we look at what they've done, what they've been doing over the years, and you find that it's actually terminal. There's very few options that they have to fix the situation or to remedy the situation that they've been that they've created. So I think, as I said, get the right kind of information, get online and educate yourself as much as possible. And number two, speak to a professional, because only then will you know how you're supposed to be conducting yourself and if you're on the right track. I don't know if that answers your question. And then from there, you're then able to put a plan in place, because that's what a professional is there for, right? To say to you, for your lifestyle and for the goals that you're wanting to achieve for yourself, this is a level of savings that you need to be putting away. This is how much life cover, this is how much dread disease cover, all of those things that are important to you. This is the level that's correct or optimal for you. And then from there, you can choose whether to self-direct or not, until a certain point in the future where you go again for a sanity check with a professional to say, am I still on the right track?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's powerful, that you can only do self-diagnosis for so long. But at some point, you really need to see someone who has spent years and years learning about the subject matter, right? But we also know that very few women have financial planners or even use their own financial planners. Any thoughts on that, Candace? Why is that we are not using the resources that are available for us?
It's so true. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed is a lot of women feel a bit intimidated in a way to step into that office, because they also don't want to appear ignorant. And it can, the financial industry often, if you don't find the right person, can create a bit of an intimidating feel. So it is finding the right person to connect with, to start talking to, because a financial planner is phenomenal. At 15, I had my first financial planner. I didn't start investing on my own because I had no idea. I was playing netball and going to school. I didn't want to worry about my money. I was like, well, here it is. You take care of it. And I slowly, from that, I started to learn myself. So like Gugu said, it's so vital. We have to build our own financial literacy, because as you learn, you're then also able to understand what that financial planner is saying and to ask them the right questions for you. Which is vital, because it isn't about how much money you make. It's what you do with that money that matters. And that is so, so important. And it's something we sometimes take for granted, but it's simple, disciplined habits, because you can eventually set up your finances to be automated. And yes, you're having those check-ins, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, once a year, you make sure you've got that, you checking in, you are in the driver's seat of your finances, but you also automate it to the point where, especially as a woman, we are always looking after everyone. So finances just seems like this additional burden. So set it up so it's too easy not to do. Then you can go on taking care of everyone, but knowing that you are still building that financial future that's going to take care of you and all the wonderful people in your life.
Thanks, Candace. I like that thought that, it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be binary, because often we are conditioned and trained that it has to be either or, but it can be both. You can still look after the people that you care about and still take care of yourself financially in the future by making sure that you're doing the right things. I like what Monica says there. She says, it is also because traditionally we expected that one day a husband would support us. So as women, we tend to outsource our money management somewhere or to someone, right? And so then we don't actually take responsibility for creating the financial futures that we like. And that then limits our ability to also even take the steps that we need to take in terms of investments. We also know that as women, we've got, low risk tolerance, right? So we avoid things that might look like risky. And to your point, even having a conversation about money. That's why sometimes money is a taboo subject for many women, right? Money is a taboo subject for many women. Gugu, how should women leaders approach investing to build long-term wealth, and what investment strategies are most suitable for their risk tolerance and financial goals?
Just on your point about risk tolerance, it is a misconception that women have a lower risk tolerance compared to men. And a lot of these studies, and we actually see it in practice as well, by the way, is that I think the term is risk aware. I think women are more risk aware, and that's how we generally are in life, right? About everything, not just about investments. When we don't know about a particular subject, we tend to take more time in understanding what it is before we make a decision or before we commit. And so a lot of the studies, and in fact, like I said, and in practice, we found that the more information a woman has about investments, the more willing she is to take on the risk. And so I think the difference with dealing with women and men is that women take more time to make the decision the financial decision, but you need to educate, right? We need to spend more time educating women, giving them information, and making sure that they understand. And once a woman understands the benefits of getting into long-term, slightly more riskier assets compared to others, she's likely more to commit. In fact, those are the best kind of clients. Women are the best kind of clients, because once they understand a product, sorry, and once they get into it, they tend to commit to it more than men, right? And so that's actually, I think, the missing link between how women's money is managed versus men's, is that we need to give more information, we need to educate them more and encourage them more to take on more risk, and they're more likely to do that. And so with that, I would like to say, I think we I mean, in our organization, we do what's called a financial personality assessment. So it is a risk analyzer. So it tells you how you feel about risk and uncertainty, right? But there's also some intuitive measures that we take into consideration as well. Is that while you're experiencing volatility and uncertainty in the markets, what are you likely to feel and what are you likely to do? So that we get to understand you as the person before you get invested, so that we can educate you upfront to say, you know what? You are going to want to sell out and sit on cash. You are going to want to phone me on a Sunday morning when I absolutely can't help you with anything and tell me that you're feeling anxious and that I should cash out of your investments. That day is coming, right? And I think as soon as you lay that up front and you say to a person, this is what's going to happen to you, when the day comes, you find that they're a lot more composed, right? And that they're a lot more, they'll stay the journey. So what should women do when it comes to long-term investments? Is firstly, you should be invested as risky in as risky investments as possible. Obviously, with reason, right? You need to get professional advice and understand exactly what you're investing in. But the more risk you take on, the higher the chance or potential of you making more money in the long term. And the younger you are, the more you should be invested in more risky assets. That's just the rule. And you sitting in cash or putting your money in money market accounts or 32-day notice accounts for periods longer than 3 years, you're actually eroding value over time. You're losing money. So women need to understand that whatever it is that I'm doing, I need to take on the most amount of risk. It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to want to cry on certain days when Russia is bombing Ukraine, or when Israel decides that they're going to bomb, and whatever's happening in the world. I'm going to feel uncertain. I'm going to stress, but over the long term, I'm going to be better off for it. And again, I want to bring it back to the point that we discussed earlier. That's where the value of great advice comes. When somebody paints the picture for you and shows you exactly, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. Only now I'm starting to see certain retirees retire with money where we started at almost nothing, and they're at a point of future of financial security. And it is such gratifying. It's like confirmation that the system works. In between there's lots of blips and scary moments in the way, but it actually works, and you will be better for it in the long run. The more risk, the more tolerant you are of risk and uncertainty in the investment market over the long term.
I like how you reframed it. It's not low risk tolerance, it's risk awareness. It's being more risk aware, because without awareness, then you are just averse anyway, because you don't know.
You just don't know.
And I must say then that, when I started my own investment journey, trying to get into stocks, to your point, I probably need to take the personality assessment, the risk personality assessment. When I was looking at this money and it's going up and down, I'm like, no, we're taking it all out. We're not doing this. And then I started going into almost real estate investment, and I felt safer there, right? And the reason I felt safer there is because you can see the asset. So you've got the equity. If you have invested in a good location, obviously you probably have the equity, and then you also have the cash flow. What are some of the, I don't know how to reframe this, but less riskier investments that you would probably recommend for women, Candace?
Is we confuse risk with volatility. The market's always going to go up and down. And right now we're seeing some interesting things. So people always used to say, it's good to have some of your investments in cash and bonds, because it used to be this correlation of if the stocks were going up, the bonds were going down. But now we are playing by new rules. We're in a market where negative correlation is happening. These things aren't happening. We're seeing bonds and stocks going up and down at the same time. So I think with choosing what's safer or less risky, it's you the riskiest thing you can do is not get your money working for you. The riskiest thing you can do is not growing your financial literacy, because you don't want to wake up one day and going, oh, if only I had done X, Y, and Z, and the time is gone. Because when it comes to investing, time is your greatest asset. The earlier you start, and the more you give your investments the time, the greater it grows. I mean, the numbers become insane. Often when I chat with clients, I say to them, look, if you can afford it, can we not start a tax-free savings investment for like your children? Because can I show you what will happen over time? And when you show them the numbers, I mean, a tax-free investment, assuming a 10% invested when a child is born, can grow to like 156 million rand when they are in their 60s. That is, the mind boggles that you've put in 500,000 rand and it grows to 156. And it's the time that is the biggest thing. So for me, the riskiest thing you can do is not take action. You need to start investing. If you're not sure, go speak to that financial planner, get that help, keep learning, keep giving your finances time. Because the more time you give it, the more comfortable you get, then you're going to make good decisions and you're going to look back and go, I'm so glad I did.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have learned so much from you ladies. Unfortunately, our time is running out. Our webinar is like 45 minutes later. If you like what you had, please give us a like or a comment in the chat box. What is your parting shot, Gugu, to the ladies that are on the line? Money and women. What is your parting shot?
No one's coming to save you. Absolutely nobody is coming to save you. It's all on you. Don't delay. Start today.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Candice, what is your parting shot? Money and women.
I think for me, it's just start learning. And, I know some of you are saying, oh, but it's late in the game. No, it's not. It's a tool. Money is a tool. And it's just about learning, becoming familiar with it. Give it the time it deserves. And little steps every day are going to amount to something incredible in your life.
Okay, thank you so much. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Remember, we do this every month, so have a look out and check when our next one is, and we'll have different conversations to really flesh out or just give you a tease of what we share in our 10-week coaching program. We've got a Leadership for Women coaching program that focuses on the total person, total leader concept, so that we can develop as women to share, to develop and be to reach our full potential in leadership as women. And we will send you information regarding this particular program. I saw there is someone that said, how can I get a session with Gugu? In our email with the recording, we'll send you content. We will also provide contact for Gugu and Candice if you need to get in touch with them. Thank you so much for being on this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thanks, Mavis. As probably the only person in the audience from the other gender, I must tell you it was eye-opening for myself as well. People, we will be sending you the details, contact details and details of the recording. Great to have you all on board. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to end the meeting. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.